Hey everyone, so in this video you're going to learn about while loops, booleans, and comparisons. By the end of this you should be able to make some spiral animation like this, so let's get on with it. Okay, so while loops. While loops are like the instructions in a list where you tell your user to repeat functions. So it's like, hey, I want to do 1, 2, then I want you to repeat 3 and 4 3 times. Or, like, I want you to repeat 5 and 6 until, like, 20 minutes passes. And that's the function of a while loop. So the syntax of a while loop is while, parentheses, boolean, / conditional, and then your code brackets. That's the first time you're actually having to write your own code brackets, and these are the things you need to look out for. All right, so make sure you have your brackets and make sure you have your while loop. And so something new about brackets they should know is that in a bracket, so you have a bracket here and a bracket here, sorry. Then anything inside of its own brackets, it can access. So for example, if I have a variable up here called let x equals 0, then I can access point with x here, right? So anything inside of your brackets you can access because this x value is on the outside of this bracket, right? But if I have point x here, it wouldn't work because it's outside of the bracket it's being initialized in. Since, you have your bracket here and then you have your point variable outside of the brackets, right? Okay, so now you know that. You have your function loop. So the loop function loops every time. So it tries to loop as fast as it can. And I'm going to tell you 2 supporting ways to use while loops. So we have the variable on the outside. I'm going to call this time. So this time variable keeps track of how many times the loop function has repeated. Well, right now it just sets it as 0. So I'm going to make sure that the time actually increments. So time plus 1. Okay, so now every time this loops, we know that the time variable increases by 1. So you can use it to differentiate time. And then in your while loop, you can have while, I'm going to move this down a little bit. So in our while loop, you can also have a variable inside, let count. So now this variable is going to count how many times, or I'm going to use this variable to count the number of times we want to make something inside of this one loop. So for this one, I'm going to have a while count is less than 5, and I'm going to increment count every time that we loop through the function so we can get out of it. Now I can say, hey, I want a point where it's dependent on the time and the count. So for this one, there should be a screen with your balls like that moving this way because the time increments the x value and then the count iterates new points on the y value. Now, I didn't talk about conditionals here. These conditionals can be used just like a plus minus division and multiplication sign, where it can be used anywhere else. So these new operators, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, oh sorry, they're flipped. So greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or not equal to. Now, this one's a little funky because it's two equal signs. It's basically differentiating it from a one equal sign, which is like a setting operator. So don't use that. And now, with these, you can make something called booleans. Booleans are a new type of variable. A boolean tracks if something is true or false. So, to initialize a boolean, so the boolean initializer is true and false, just like you would expect it. Okay, now we can use these functions to make booleans. So I'm going to show you how to do that in the code. Now we're back in the code. So I am going to make that time variable that I was talking about. So let time equals 0, and then every time I draw, time is incremented by 1. Sorry, it's not called loop, it's called draw. I think I made a mistake on the other video. I should probably fix that. And now we can use this time to increment. And now I'm going to make a new counter variable. And I'm going to make a while loop and make sure the count is less than 10 this time. And every time it loops in the while loop, I increment count by 1. Okay. Now I'm going to teach you a new function. It's used for debugging, which is like whenever you make errors inside of your code, you're able to see what types of things are happening during the code. And for this one, you can use console.log. That's the name of the function. And then now in the parameters, you can give it a string. If you don't remember what a string is, go back to the variables video. But to initialize a string, use 2 quotation marks. And inside the quotation marks, you can put in like a string or any text. And I can see that every time this draws, it's drawing 10 hellos. Right now it's drawing a lot because the draw function is looping a lot. But if I, let's see, give it like a number. For example, I'm just gonna console.log the count. Console.log can do integers, strings, and other things. Then you can see that, hey, the console is outputting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is shown here. All right, so now I'm gonna try to draw something on the screen. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure that the stroke weight, is 10. Or actually, so that it doesn't run every time, I'm just gonna set it up here. And then now in here, I am going to make the points. So point, so I'm gonna make it dependent on the count. So count and then 100. Just to see what it does. And now it kind of looks like a line, but since count only increments by 1, it's making a small difference. So for each count, I want to multiply it by 10. So if it's 1, then I want it 10 pixels to the right. If it's 2, 20 pixels to the right, etc. So 20, okay, that's pretty good. I'm just gonna increase that by 20 so there's more dots. Okay, now we have that. Now we can look at this time variable and use it to change the y values. So I'm gonna use time here and I'm gonna increment it or multiply by 10 so it uses time, but it can multiply the time so it goes faster. So like that. Now, as you can see, if I decrease that number, then I'll go slower. Okay. Now, in this thing, you see 2 things. That the dots move back every time that it reaches a certain point, and also you have some lines here. So those 2 things I'll teach right now, and those are 2 There's one function, which is the line, and then the other one is a new operator that I'm going to teach you. So I'm going to teach you what a line is. So line, I'm just going to remove this for now. And line is the name of the function. And then we have 4 parameters. The first 2 parameters are the x and y. And then the other ones are the ending x and y positions. So for example, if the line position starts at 20, and the other one starts at 50 and 30 or 40, then, it makes one at 20, and then another one at 50, 40. Like that. So as you can see, if I increase the second x value, then the x value for the second point moves to the right. And make sure you know that the stroke weight is also used for drawing the line. So I'm going to draw 2 lines. I'm going to draw a line here. I'm going to draw another line here. So to do that, I'm just going to copy this line function. And I'm going to set the y values to be the same. So I'm going to set it to 200, 240, 250. And then I'm going to set it to the other side of the screen. So this has got to be 400. The other one's also 400. This one starts at 0 and 0. And these should be the same because they have the same y value. There you go. Now you have 2 lines. And then I'm going to bring back those dots. Okay, so I inputted the old code. And if I run it, we can see the balls are dropping down. So I'm going to teach you a new operator. It's the same thing as adding a plus, minus, multiplication, division, like I said before, but this is called a modulo operator. So a modulo operator gives you the remainder if those 2 numbers are divided. So if I say 5 modulo 3, or 2, then that would equal, that'd be the same as 1. Because if I divide 5 by 2, then we get 2, and then the remainder of 5 is 1. Okay. So now we can use that to loop. So if I have the dot here, so if I have the dot anywhere actually, and I set the modulo operator to divide, I'm going to put parentheses around everything, right here. I'm going to put a modulo operator with 20, then every time it gets to 20, then it'll loop back to 0. Just think about it. So like I said, it works. So it loops back. Now I'm also going to use the count variable to increase the time, right? So I'm going to use it to differentiate each ball so that it has a different y value for each one. So to do that, I'm just going to set count increased. Okay. I'm actually going to scale that even more. Boom. And now I want it in between here. So in my y, in all of these, right? So I'm going to put another parenthesis around here. And I'm going to increase the starting position of the balls, which is going to be 200. Okay. And now I also want to stop it here. We can see that here it's width of 50. So I'm going to decrease this to 50. And boom, now we have those balls. And now I'm going to increase this by 10. I'm going to decrease this to maybe times 1. So now it does that. All right, I hope you understand all that. If you don't understand, just look up what a modulo operator is and these line variables. All right, good luck.